Check, check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go! Hey, everybody. Welcome to Ballsy Uncut, episode 121. We're coming up on 1 year. Yeah, I don't do one every day, so it wouldn't be 365. But we're coming up on 1 year. June 7th was the very first installment of Ballsy Uncut. And we're happy to continue this passion of mine to cover all types of sports, but in particular the 3-down game. And thanks to all the sponsors for getting on board, just getting into the renewal process. Lots are renewing and some new ones getting on board. Also, the Our Balls Are Bigger post-game show with myself, Kyrie Zabear, and Ryan Hall will be getting going again starting in the regular season. Training camps are underway across the CFL. Lots of great storylines. We're going to talk to Taylor Shire of the Leader Post, my old friend, about the goings-on there at Rider Camp, and get some predictions on the West and the East. We're also going to hear the latest in Major League Baseball from Caleb Joseph. It's our regular Takin Cuts segment. That's one of the ones that's up for sponsorship. So if you'd like to jump in on that, we will. That's a regular chat we have with the former Major League catcher with the Orioles and Jays and Rogers Sportsnet baseball analyst. He is with our show exclusively here when he's not on Rogers, so we thank him. And we'll also highlight the up-and-coming ball players across Saskatchewan. All right, let's talk about some of the goings-on. Talking about Canadian talent, man, we are in a unprecedented era of Canadian quarterbacks. You got Nathan Rourke, of course, trying to get back to his 2022 form with the BC Lions. Is he closer to the 2022 form when he was a shooting star and went to the NFL, or is he closer to kind of the struggles we saw last year? I would say it's probably closer to 2022, but time will tell. But we got Nathan Rourke and we got Trey Ford. The Elks have invested heavily in the quarterback, so we'll see how long a leash he has in Edmonton with Cody Fajardo, the veteran Grey Cup winning quarterback, looking over his shoulder. A two-time Grey Cup winning quarterback, of course, as a short yardage specialist with Toronto. Then, of course, a couple years ago, had the game of his life for the Alouettes against the Blue Bombers. Then you got south of the border, just the fourth ever quarterback from a Canadian university, Canadian trained in Taylor Elgersma, going from Laurier to the Green Bay Packers, signing his rookie deal. So he was a Blue Bombers draft pick. Looks like he's going to get a legitimate shot there at a third string spot in Green Bay. And then in the 7th round, this guy had, I think, thumb or finger and knee problems. That would be Curtis Rourke, the brother of Nathan at Indiana University. They had a great season. He gutted through the injuries, and he's been rewarded with a rookie contract and a shot with the 49ers coming out of the 7th round there. Kyle Shanahan seems to like him. So you got Matt LaFleur, a great offensive coach, and Kyle Shanahan, a coach, great offensive coach with San Francisco. LaFleur and Green Bay taking chances on Canadian quarterback. So it's great to see the Canadian quarterback being respected. And who knows? Now it's kind of like music. It's kind of like music or entertainment or anything. Unless the Americans say it's good, we don't believe it's good. Sad but true. And so, and maybe some of that's changing with this whole back and forth tariff thing. Hopefully it is. But these guys here getting their shot in the NFL, and maybe that'll start people paying attention more to Canadian quarterbacks, and then, you know, shit goes downhill, and maybe we'll see our American coaches lean more towards looking at Canadian quarterbacks. Maybe we'll have a few more of them at the Combine, like the Senecals of the world. Speaking of former great U Sports quarterbacks, Mason Nias, who's the offensive coordinator and the co-head coach or assistant head coach of the U of S Huskies. He's at training camp with Bo Levi Mitchell and the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Scott Milanovich brought him in. And Scott Flory, who's the head coach of the U of S, former great lineman with the Montreal Alouettes, Canadian Football Hall of Famer. He is with the Alouettes in training camp. Of course, Jeff Stusek is in training camp, the assistant coach of the Rams with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So that's good seeing Canadian coaches getting a chance at the pro level too. Switching gears here, man, the NFL, or check that, NHL reffing is awful. Like awful. Last night, as you watch this, the Oilers won 3-0. Evander Kane, who, listen, he ruffles some feathers. He plays like a prick. He plays on the edge. So they're already going to look at him as the glass is half empty. But he gets run over from behind into his goalie. It starts a big brouhaha in the corner. He gets a charging penalty. Absolutely atrocious. And that guy never gets a call. I can't remember the Florida Panther guy early in the Toronto series got smoked from behind into the boards. Like face first, he's kissing the glass. His face is all smeared on the plexi. He got an embellishment call. The Stars player, I believe it was Petrovic, kicks the puck towards the net in the last game against the Jets. They played tonight, by the way. Kicks the puck towards the net, and Hellebuck, it goes off a Hellebuck and in. And because I guess it goes off a Hellebuck and in, it's not considered kicking in, a kicked in goal. What? And then Marchment of Dallas doesn't get a penalty call he thinks he deserves. So at the end of his shift, now it wasn't a vicious slash, but he still all the same slashed the referee on the pads, never got a penalty in the game, and never got supplementary discipline. Like no suspension. Wow, we're opening a Pandora's box there with the abusive officials. What's next? Can you get him in a headlock? Can you run him into the boards? Can you slap a puck purposely off him if you're pissed off at him? Crazy, man. Honestly, you see more legitimate officiating in the WWE or AEW or these independent wrestling circuits than you do in NHL playoff hockey. It's actually kind of gross. If you're a racing fan, Sovereignty's victory in the Kentucky Derby has been tainted, because I guess Sovereignty, the horse, was whipped too much. I didn't even know that was a thing, but the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Authority allows riders to whip their horses 6 times during a race. I learned something new today. Hopefully you did too. Sovereignty's jockey, Junior Alvarado, apparently smacked him 8 times. Okay, wait. Did Alvarado think this was a Diddy party and not the Kentucky Derby? Anyway, it's the second time that he's violated that rule in 180 days. And because of that, old Junior's been fined $62,000, which translates to 20% of his $310,000 in winnings, in Derby winnings. And he's been suspended for 2 racing days. He knows he messed up. Junior says, quote, "I couldn't keep track of that. It's such a big race that there's so much that you've got on your mind." You know how like the umps have the counters, right? Or the referees in football, like 3rd, 2nd, or in NFL 4th down. Like, how would you keep track of that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's a quirky rule and a weird rule. And how many spotters, like you have concussion spotters in football, how many spotters do they have for the whipping? Or do they go back and look at that? Crazy. And couldn't in real time you say, no, that guy doesn't win because he whipped his horse 2 more times than that jockey whipped his horse. Oh, the intricacies of the Kentucky Derby. Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce was seen at lunch by onlookers with Taylor Swift and his mom. Apparently it was fun watching the 2 women take turns correcting his table manners. And the 2025 NFL season will open with Philadelphia hosting Dallas. And the game will end with Dallas fans once again saying, don't worry, Cowboy fans, it's just one game. How about them Cowboys? Yeah, be interesting to see what Brian Schottenheimer, Marty's son, does with the Dallas Cowboys. Now that they got George Pickens in there, they got 2 receivers, CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. They needed somebody else because it was CeeDee Lamb or bust. So we'll see what the Cowboys can do. The Eagles, of course, defending Super Bowl champs. I'd like to thank all the sponsors who've gotten on board. Ward Tire Craft. Thanks to them, 101 Dudney Avenue. Super Squeeze Seltzer, District Brewing, their mango lime and passion fruit lime. Check them out at 8th Avenue. Also, Boys Next Door Window Cleaning, Nathan and Landon. They're in full effect. Not only that, but they're not just doing windows, but pressure washing and all that type of stuff. So check them out, Boys Next Door. We also have our friends at AGT Foods Canada, Murat El Khatib and his gang there, feeding the world. giving back to the community, especially the football community here in Regina. Also want to give a shout out to Paul Waldo at Royal LePage in Regina, getting the real estate game with the 3-time Grey Cup champ, 306-502-5355. And Kevin Welsh, Hammer Time Roofing in Saskatoon. If you need roofing in the Saskatoon and surrounding area, 262 Roof. He is my memorabilia sponsor. Still getting those shirts out as well to those that wanted them. That's the Our Balls Are Bigger shirts. If you want a shirt, $25 to ALS going towards the Glenn Love Life ALS Foundation, a foundation he started up. He's a former CFL linebacker that has developed ALS and is in a fight for his life. So far, his quality of life is okay, but he needs medication down south. And he has started a foundation, not just for him, but for others battling ALS. So $25 a shirt. DM me, Facebook, X. You can message me on YouTube. You can get a hold of me on Instagram or text me 306-526-7979. Thanks for checking out installment 121 of Ballsy Uncut. Taylor, how are you, bro?
I'm great. How are you?
Been a while since we talked. Last time I think it was Media Row Pats. Hey, by the way, what do you think of what Al Miller did with the Pats there?
Well, I think the lottery luck that they had was one thing, but of course with Maddox Schultz landing with the Pats with the first pick, that was a little bit of luck. But then for Alan Miller to pull off that trade to get number 3 and Liam Pugh, who's going to be basically as dynamic of a forward as Schultz from what I've heard in certain scouting reports, it's going to be a pretty good tandem for them in the future.
Have you interviewed him? I haven't interviewed Schultz yet. I was supposed to, but he's a little overwhelmed right now, which I get. Grade 9 student. But Pugh, I had him on from Langley. He's a great conversationalist, as it were.
Yeah, we chatted with him briefly on draft night and Maddox as well. I've interviewed him a few times going back to sort of the Pat season and not applying for exceptional status, but yeah, very good kid, very good family, and yeah, the Pats couldn't have landed 2 better people, let alone players, right?
So Trevor Harris had an all-star season last year, despite only playing 11 games. He's a guy that hasn't dressed for a full season in 10 years. He's turning 39, definitely still has gas left in the tank in terms of directing a team, no doubt about it. But nice signing to get Jake Mayer, and by all accounts, he's been slinging the rock at training camp off to a good start. Just your thoughts on the Riders quarterback, I guess trifecta with Tommy Stevens coming over too now.
Yeah, well, if you think about last year, they had Harris, right? And he was the uncontested starter. This is great. We've got our guy, right? What the Riders thought. But then behind him, there was sort of this battle for number 2 between a few different players over the last 2 years. Shea Patterson kind of took the reins last year as that backup after being sort of the 3rd and 4th stringer the year prior. And he made his first career start when Harris got injured. And they didn't really have a 3rd string short yardage guy cemented. It was sort of, Antonio Pipkin was brought in a little bit. Patterson handled it a little bit. And they didn't really have the guy who they could roll out and at any moment's notice. Trevor Harris even did some short yardage stuff last year, so that kind of speaks about the state of their short yardage. So this offseason, I think, number one, Trevor Harris, obviously they want him to be healthy, but if he's not, they have the ultimate insurance policy in Jake Mayer, who's now one of the most experienced backups in the CFL. I guess Cody Fajardo might be the other one. Mm-hmm. And then they have this short yardage specialist who is the best in the league, in my opinion, at doing it. So in terms of, the Riders will only win if Trevor Harris is healthy storyline that we maybe had last year, I think that's out the window. I think they have their sort of the ultimate insurance policy, as I said. If Trevor goes down for a 3rd straight year, I don't see this team skipping a beat.
Yeah, so in 22 and 23, the O-line was in a state of flux, and it's kind of interesting because Jeremy O'Day is one of the best O-linemen that's played for the Rough Riders, yet that's been an Achilles heel of this team. It got better last year with some key signings, Hardrick being one of them. He got hurt, though. Trevor Reed stepped in nicely. Riders have added a lot of American offensive linemen in the offseason. McEwen, you got Harris, who he's not the most mobile guy as it is. Jake Maier can I noticed in his game last year with Calgary could move when he had to on the run to throw the football, but he's definitely not a scrambler like a Trey Ford. But the O-line looks like it's probably the best it's been in a long time here, at least since Jeremy O'Day's been the GM.
Yeah, and Trevor's a guy who wants to be in the pocket to throw, and I think Jake would say the same thing. He'll scrabble, like you said, when he has to, but both of those guys want to be in the pocket. So when you look at the talent that they have on the offensive line, Sean McEwen's an all-star center they brought in to replace Peter Godbert. That would, in my opinion, Peter was a great player, but Sean McEwen might be the best center in the league. Jamarcus Hardrick, maybe still the best right tackle in the league. He's getting up there in age. If he's healthy, he's going to be absolutely dominant. And they lost Trevor Reed last year, and that was sort of that position of what are they going to do at left tackle, because Trevor Reed just an outstanding rookie season at left tackle, but then Trevion Tate was brought in after being sort of released from Calgary, had a stint with the Argos with Corey Mace, was brought in, sort of took over that right tackle spot, then played some left tackle. He, in my opinion, is one of the more underrated offseason signings or retentions, I guess, that this team brought back, because he's going to cement that left tackle spot. Can play right tackle in a pinch if Hardrick, somebody gets hurt and they have to juggle. So Tate, to me, is a huge guy to bring back along this offensive line. And I think they have a surplus of experience and depth at guard. I don't know who's going to be the odd man out. They signed Philip Gagnon from Montreal, who's a Grey Cup champion and starter. Zach Fry looked great last year. Logan Ferland obviously is going to have one of those two guard positions, but the other one, I think there's four guys. Even Jacob Brammer, who's getting reps, he's an American, but they can do that based on the ratio. So to me, there's 4 or 5 guys who are competing for one guard spot along the offensive line who all have extensive playing experience, and that, to me, says you have a talented offensive line, because you're going to have to put a guy in the practice roster who's been playing in this league for quite some time.
I'm interested. You don't really get much at training camp, but I did see A.J. Ouellette at Crestview Chrysler when he picked up his vehicle. He looks like he's trimmed down. We all saw the social media posts and everything like that. I'm interested to see if that translates in the game, because he was less than spectacular last season. Certainly for the wage they signed him up for.
Yeah, and I think the style of his running game, obviously he didn't have a great year, but to me in the first few games when he was healthy and playing at the start of the year, it just seemed like he was running towards where people were, in my opinion. He wanted to get hit. He wanted to show he was that bruising running back and could blow people over. Then he obviously missed a bunch of those games with injury, and I remember talking to him right after he came back. He said, I want to be able to be a little bit more patient, find the hole, let my offensive linemen make a hole for me, find some space. And he said that again this year. He said he lost, 20 pounds. He's not going to play under 200 pounds or whatever his number was. So he's not going to be this slim running back. He's not going to shy away from big hits and shy away from trying to run over a guy. But he said again, he's trying to find more green space. So what does that look like? Being a little bit more patient, having the agility and mobility to make those cuts. If his hips are, not carrying those extra 20 pounds, I think it'll allow him to do that when he's on the field. So I think, to me, the physique is one thing, but just the running style and the patience is the most important thing for him. And, you have a good quarterback who's got a good arm and a good offensive line. That, to me, is sets up the running back for great success.
And they've got great defense on the other side of the ball. And an interesting signing, the former Regina Ram, Tavon Campbell, who comes back from the NFL. If he's still got wheels, that could be a big difference maker like you talked about. They can juggle now, maybe more Americans on the offense, because if you could play a Canadian at safety and corner, look out.
Yeah, Tavon Campbell, and to me, again, we talk about what their needs were this offseason. I think they needed a left tackle when Trevor Reed was replaced, and obviously a backup quarterback. But I think that cornerback spot was up there, if not, in the top 3 of needs this offseason. Deontay Williams and Amari Henderson, neither looked great last year, and obviously they got sort of exposed as the season went along, especially in the West Final. So who is going to be that opposing cornerback? Marcus Sales had a great year on the other side. Mm-hmm. Big re-signing to get him back, but who is going to be that guy? Would they have to find somebody in free agency? Would it just be a camp competition that this American rookie would come to, or several American rookies would come to camp and compete for a spot? And then Tavon Campbell's name just randomly got thrown out there that he had signed with the Riders, I don't think anybody thought he was available, or he wasn't certainly top of mind when it came to sort of off-season projections. I don't even know when Jeremy O'Day and company found out that he was available. Yeah. Maybe they reached out to him. Maybe Tabont and said, hey, my time in the NFL is winding down, and called Saskatchewan and said, hey, I'd like to come back home, right? Because he did go to university here. He's not necessarily from here, but went to university here, had a stint here. But to me, that just a massive signing that was completely out of left field. If he still has, what he had in the CFL and the NFL, he's going to be the ultimate shutdown cornerback, let alone an ultimate ratio breaker.
Yeah, and of course you got the C.J. Reeveses, the Roland Milligans, the Jameer Thurmans, Micah Johnson's back, Mike Rose is here. Like, honestly, if you're looking at the West right now, Winnipeg's the incumbent leader of the pack, and we're always waiting for Winnipeg to take a step back. I've got, without going into it, I got a little inside information. I always wondered what the culture was like there. My son's there. He said, Dad, this is a top-notch. Like, these guys, it's a well-run organization. So I don't know that the Bombers will ever totally, tank. But I would say right now, it's the Riders' division to lose. That's my honest opinion. And I feel the Riders have to be in the Grey Cup, or it's not a successful season. I mean, a home playoff game, a Western Division final loss again, been there, done that. I believe it's been, what is it, Taylor, now? It's 2013 since they've even appeared in a Grey Cup. In a 9-team league, when you're one of the preeminent flagship franchises, would you agree with me? It's Grey Cup or bust for this team in terms of at least getting there.
To me, obviously that's the goal, and I think that is the expectation for a lot of people inside and outside the organization. To me, they need to get past the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, especially in Winnipeg. If it's in the West semifinal, West final, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Sure, they can win a Grey Cup game. They need to get past the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So I still think it's the Bombers' division to lose, and the Riders need to go take it from them. And they can do that throughout the regular season if they go into Labor Day and Banjo Bowl and get a sweep and say, hey, we're the Kings now of the West, and they can actually win a game in Winnipeg, which they haven't done in forever, it seems. So if they go in there and can win a Banjo Bowl and come back with a 2-0 sweep in that series, I know they play them again, but that to me sets the tone for the playoffs. Then if Saskatchewan finishes first in the division and Winnipeg has to come to Mosaic to play a playoff game, I think that obviously sets up the Riders for more success. But to me, they still have to get through Winnipeg, whether that's at home or away in the playoffs, in order to say that this is their division. I still think it's Winnipeg's to lose at this point.
Okay, so you got Winnipeg fit.
No. I have Saskatchewan beating Winnipeg, but they need to show it. They need to get through Winnipeg.
Yeah. So here's how I have the West shaping up. I got Saskatchewan 1, Winnipeg 2. I think Edmonton is poised to take a step here. They were close last year after starting slow. 3. I'll be interested to see how long a leash Trey Ford has there in Edmonton. But I got Edmonton 3, and then it's a coin flip BC Calgary 4-5. How does your West look?
I wrote about this a couple of weeks ago. That's exactly what I had. I had BC at 4, Calgary at 5. But to me, you could have 3, 4, and 5 in any order. Is Nathan Rourke going to be the 2022 Nathan Rourke at quarterback for the Lions? Okay, then BC is going to be the third team. If Vernon Adams all of a sudden has this sort of year that he had last year to start, well, then Calgary's in consideration. If Trey Ford plays great, or if they even go to Cody Fajardo at Edmonton and they have this sort of resurgence from the last few years, then Edmonton's an easy number 3. So to me, I agree, Saskatchewan, Winnipeg are 1 and 2. And then there's just going to be, I think it's going to be a great battle for that third and final playoff spot, and potentially even crossover, but that's a whole other discussion. But I think there's going to be a lot of competition in the West. You could make a case for any team, to be honest. I know a lot of people do have Sask and Winnipeg at the top too, but if Nathan Rourke, lights it up and has an outstanding season and is an MOP consideration and has got a healthy offensive line and a bunch of receivers making big plays and a better defense, then why not BC? You could say the same for Edmonton, right?
So which is the more intriguing storyline for quarterback? Is it VA in Calgary, where he finally gets a chance to kind of be the guy and really seize it here? We talk about how good VA is, but he never seems to hold on to a starting job, okay? And I love VA, but I'm just saying. So is it Vernon Adams Jr. in Calgary? Is it Trey Ford, the Canadian, in Edmonton? how long a leash he gets because they invested a lot of money into him, or is it Nathan Rourke? I agree with what you said there. Is Nathan Rourke the Nathan Rourke that we saw shooting star for that short time, or is he closer to the guy we watched struggle here? I would suggest, like so many guys that go to the NFL, it was a bit of a hangover. It was a letdown for him to come back after trying for that NFL dream.
Yeah, and that's what makes the West Division so exciting this year, is because there is a lot of intrigue over every team, especially at the quarterback position. And I think nobody's out of it at this point. Oftentimes going into a year, we can say, this team's going to, have a down year. They're going to be rebuilding. They don't really have an exciting, quarterback outlook. But you look at every team, Sask and Winnipeg included, they got some interesting quarterback rooms. And can Caleros keep going? Can Harris keep going? They're going to be an MOP consideration. But to me, out of those three, it's Trey Ford going to get the chance to finally be the guy, right? So is he going to run with it? How long? Again, he has this leash, though, because they have, again, the ultimate backup in Cody Fajardo, kind of like Saskatchewan and Jake Mayer. They have a bunch of experience at backup quarterback. So how long is Trey Ford going to be the starter if he has a few bad games in a row? Yeah. Will that continue, right? And there's going to be ups and downs in Trey Ford's game because he's dynamic, yet that leads to mistakes, turnovers, interceptions, what have you, when you try to make these outstanding plays. And then he'll all of a sudden throw for 4 touchdowns in a quarter and lead the Elks to a win, but then maybe throw 4 picks and fumble the ball twice the next game, right? That comes with being a quarterback like that. But yeah, you could pick any one of those storylines, and I'm all for it this year.
I mean, what's interesting is, Cody didn't want to be a backup in Montreal, and McLeod Bethel Thompson didn't want to be a backup in Edmonton, but they found themselves this guy off the bench in different cities, which is more comfortable for them, just given the situation. That's kind of an interesting twist, too. Like, both guys could be starters. It's just that they couldn't begin as backups in the places where they were last year.
And even with Jake Mayer, too, right? He goes from starter in Calgary to backup in Saskatchewan. So I don't know if that makes it easier to accept when you go to somewhere new and somebody isn't standing in your shoes in your stadium, as the starter, right? If you're at a company and somebody gets hired to replace you, but you have to stay with the company, well, how is that going to make you feel pretty happy? Or you want to go somewhere else for a comparable job or maybe even a lesser job in that backup role? So I kind of see it as that. You kind of need the fresh opportunity when you are demoted, in a sense. And you're not that starter that you once were. I don't blame anybody for wanting to move after losing out on their starting job.
Hey, what do you make of the Caleros thing? Listen, Zach Caleros, I grew up really disliking the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, so it's a different twist for me. So I'm kind of walking a line here where people will just say I'm a Blue Bomber apologist now. That's not it. I don't care if he was playing for the Riders or honestly, I don't care in this sense. He's 36, 37 years old. He's going to start taking steroids right now or performance-enhancing drugs. And if he did, and he misses his call for 2 hours, do we really think that those drugs, like Doug Brown said, are going to be out of his system, like in the time he missed the call? Like, doesn't that look stupid on the CFL? It just looks ridiculous. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I feel like it's unfortunate. It's this off-season story nobody really, they didn't want, the CFL didn't want, the Bombers didn't want, even as a fan and follower of the league. I don't know if it's great for anybody. If I haven't heard the whole story, if Zach looked at his phone and said, "Oh, well, it's they're calling me for a drug test. I'm not answering it. Decline." Okay, well, no, you don't do that, right? You get paid to do a job. But if he was actually not around his phone or didn't know who was calling, right?
Yeah.
How many times do I pick up my phone when there's a random number and don't answer, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. And
it looks bad on him, and it does look bad on the CFL. Like, could we not come to some sort of agreement? And he did say, "Hey, listen, fine." Behind the scenes, he's like, "Fine, I'll play the first game for free." Like, come on.
Well, and they have made changes. Obviously, it was supposed to be a 2-game suspension. They knocked it down to 1, so they made a change there. And then they said, okay, now we're going to contact the team's agent, whatever media guy, to then call this player if we can't get a hold of him. And that, to me, is the solution. I can't believe it got to this point where we're where there was an actual suspension to one of the faces of the league, let alone a practice roster player or whatever. It's surprising to me that it got to this point, but now it seems like they have something in place where it's not going to happen where whoever, Darren Cameron's going to call up Santa Claus and say, hey, pick up your phone. These guys want to talk to you.
Yeah, of course, Darren Cameron, the big director of communications, long time with the Blue Bombers. Okay, 2 more quick ones for you, Taylor, and I do appreciate it. The other intriguing one last year, Bo Levi Mitchell was on the bench, and only because of an injury to Powell, I believe, he gets to come off the bench, and he has an unbelievable season, and I think should have been the MOP of the league, to be quite honest with you, even though his team didn't make the playoffs. They wouldn't have had a sniff if Bo Levi Mitchell wasn't playing. Guy's a stud, but can he keep it going? Like, that's the intriguing thing for me for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. That could be a wild card. They added, Wolartarski, and they added, what's his name? Kenny Lawler. They've added some great guys there in Hamilton. So I'm very interested to see. That for me is what I'm going to be watching.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've spent this entire podcast right now talking about the West Division and the intrigue that the quarterbacks have. But, man, the East and the intrigue the quarterbacks have there is off the charts as well. Bo Levi Mitchell, like you said, outstanding year. Can he do that again, put himself in consideration, put the Ticats back into the playoff contention? Chad Kelly and the Argos, that's obviously a situation based on his injury and if he's back and healthy and ready to roll. Mm-hmm. Davis Alexander finally getting a chance in Montreal. Can he be this sort of first-year starter that brings this team, back to the Grey Cup that they were a couple of years ago? And then, Drew Brown in Ottawa. I think Ottawa is sort of the dark horse in the East because I really like Drew Brown's game. If he can stay healthy and he's got another year of experience under his belt, I think he can be a great player in this league. So, yeah, we've talked lots about the West, but, man, the storylines in the East Division are just as enticing. But Bo Levi Mitchell with I'm going to say he's going to be the uncontested starter, right, all season long. Yeah. If he doesn't have to look over his shoulder, I think he's going to have a great year.
Okay, lastly, hopefully the CFL, they're getting better at it. And I always wondered, if you got guys like Amar Dolman at the table, why aren't they better at marketing? Because this guy does put an effort in BC. And Snoop Dogg, the concert now. So, I mean, that's not my cup of tea, but kudos to him. That guy tries. He's trying to build the brand in British Columbia.
And that's all you can ask, right? You think outside the box a little bit, try, bring in somebody new, somebody refreshing, as opposed to just having the same theme games, playing the same songs, playing the same stuff, right? Having the same concerts at halftime, this, that, and the other. So, yeah, love what BC's doing. Wish it was happening a little bit more around the CFL, and maybe it will. Maybe he'll force everyone to get better in terms of, what they're bringing off the field, right? Everyone's putting together good talent on the field and good rosters are being assembled. But what are we doing off the field to attract fans? BC's leading the way, in my opinion.
Hey, I didn't get, so one more here. I'm the boss, so I can go longer. So we picked the West. I've got Hamilton. I didn't see what you wrote about this. I got Hamilton, Montreal 1, Hamilton 2. I hate to pick against the Grey Cup champs. I really do, but I think the injury to Chad Kelly and who knows, I'm going to go Ottawa 3, but it's kind of a coin flip there.
Again, I haven't written about the East yet, but you could make a case for any team. You could say Ottawa is going to be number 1, and they're going to have this great year with Drew Brown. To me, they're at number 2. I think Davis Alexander's the real deal. Mm-hmm. He looked so good last year when he was in, so Montreal's got a great team around him. I would agree with you, Montreal number 1. I'm going to say Ottawa number 2. Hamilton will be fighting for the number 2 spot with Ottawa, but I also think Toronto's in consideration. So it's hard to say, but I don't think Toronto's as good as they were, although I think I said that last year too, and they wanted to have a great year. I still think Toronto's in consideration. I think every team, somebody's got to lose, and that's the crazy part. Every team's going to be in playoff contention, West and East, but somebody will be on the outside looking in, and somebody's going to have a disappointing year. We just got to figure out who that's going to be.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Taylor, thanks for your time, man. Enjoy your work at the Leader Post. I appreciate it.
Hey, anytime, Ballsy. Take care.
Taking Cuts with our friend Caleb Joseph. Hey, we just passed through Mother's Day. How was Mom instrumental in your baseball career?
Oh, that's a great question. So my brother and I, we both played. We're 2 years apart, and she was a baseball mom, and we were always being taxied to and from the different little league locations, and it was a real joy when we were both drafted on the same day. That was a really cool moment for her. He was a high school draft, I was a college draft, and that little guy, he was drafted before me. He was a fourth rounder with the Yankees. I was a seventh rounder with the Orioles, but she was elated. And all those little league games and little league practices kind of came true. And quite often now that we're both done playing, she tells us how those were some of the better days. So we're right in the middle of this with my family, and my wife is driving my 10-year-old around when I'm at work. And so hopefully that story continues on. But moms are so instrumental in the development of little baseball players, because there's a lot of failure and they need quite a few shoulders to cry on, and mom's is usually the most comfortable.
Yeah, there you go. They're the most, you're emotionally tied to your mom in most cases. I would say this, though. You said your wife's doing it, but you do some of it too. I don't think you really appreciate what your parents did for you, i.e. your mom, till you start parading your kids around too.
No question about it. It's something you take for granted as a youngster, and then you kind of get put in the fold yourself, and you're thinking, man, this is 3 nights a week. I am driving you to and from. I'm passing up on tea times and video games and playoff hockey to watch you play baseball. But it's really, really cool because it's the purest form of baseball. Watching little 10-year-old, 11-year-olds out there, they just want to play. They want to have fun. They get super excited. It's almost like the love of the game is reignited inside of me after kind of the business part of the game as a professional sort of kills that a little bit. But then you see your sons out there playing, and it's just the greatest form of baseball. It's the reason why we did it. And sometimes you wish you could go back and experience that as a player, because it's for love of the game that you really start playing.
So give parents who are watching this a little advice when it comes to sitting diamond side and not getting carried away with your kid who's 10 playing for the Yankees or the Orioles.
Yeah, I've never seen a kid get drafted at 10 years old and make their debut at 12 or 13. So enjoy these moments. Let them have fun. It's all about having fun. My goal as a parent is to make sure that my kid says yes when I ask him, do you want to go to baseball today? Just go and have fun. Have the desire to keep playing. There are quite a few competitive people out there, and that's fine to be competitive, but if you kill the joy of the game for them at age 10 or 12, you'll never see it through. But if they're having fun and playing with their friends and not taking it too serious, you'll find out at 16, 17, that's when I think is about the right time to start getting pretty serious. But until then, play different sports, let them play outside with their friends. Don't worry about hitting a million baseballs. Everything they're doing is going to be relatable to baseball, even if they're just playing, shinny out in the garage. That's hand-eye coordination. It's all part of the gig. So that's what I try and do with my son. Let him have fun. Hope that he says yes when we say it's time for practice.
Does your bro bug you still to this day that he was drafted ahead of you?
No, he doesn't. He does bug me that he was a better hitter, and then I tell them that I was a better defender, and then we both laugh that if we could have somehow combined each other, we might have been, say, Buster Posey, and that would have been a really nice career. But no, he always had the ability to hit. He could literally fall out of bed and get 2 or 3 hits, and he probably spent a total of about a year, parts of 4 seasons in the big leagues, but I had the longer career, but he probably, pound for pound, was more talented than I was. He just got stuck behind a couple mainstays on some organizations he was in.
Okay, so speaking of hitting, I'm glad you tied that in, because just the 65th birthday of Tony Gwynn, who unfortunately passed away. He had cancer in his glands and passed away in 2014, but he would have been 65 on Friday. He's the reason why I'm a Padres fan, okay, here in the middle of Canada and Saskatchewan. But look at some of these stats. Won 8 batting titles in 20 seasons, collecting 3,141 hits. Now, check this out. He could have gone 0 for 1,000 after he retired and still hit 305, higher than the hit king, Pete Rose. And check this out. 397, 50 for 126 off of Greg Maddux and Pedro Martinez with no strikeouts. John Smoltz fanned him once while giving him a 462 average. I mean, I could go on, but that guy, he is probably the best hitter in the last, I don't know, since I've been alive for sure.
Yeah, no question about it. And you look at some of those older hitters, you go back to like Babe Ruth, the Ty Cobbs, and then you start shifting into newer age, newer era style hitters. I honestly think that Tony Gwynn, his style, his approach, the way he went to the plate, the way that he swung the baseball bat, I truly think it would have transcended all different types of eras. I think he would still be a 300-plus hitter in today's era. I think if you go back to even the Babe Ruth era, he would obviously be even better. But a lot of times you look at some of these older hitters, and it probably doesn't translate just the way they move to the ball to modern-day baseball. Tony Gwynn absolutely, in my opinion, would still be the premier hitter in the big leagues if he was playing in his prime right now in 2025. And it's funny you mentioned Smoltz and Glavine. I grew up a huge Braves fan, and so I've always been interested in kind of that starting rotation, so to speak, and they've done numerous articles and numerous interviews about Tony Gwynn. And Greg Maddux owned just about everybody. He could put a ball wherever he wanted. He literally said the one guy that he did not try and get out was Tony Gwynn. And I think that's one of the greatest compliments. You just hope that he hits a single and then move on. This is coming from one of the great painters of the baseball, so to speak, that could manipulate anybody and get them to do whatever he wanted. I heard a story about Greg Maddux that he threw a pitch. He told somebody before the game, I'm going to throw 3 pitches to Albert Pujols, and he's going to hit it to the warning track. He did that. He knew exactly where his power stroke was. He was able to execute that and get him to fly out. He was feeling confident against Albert Pujols, but he totally had given up against Tony Gwynn. That is the highest compliment I think you could ever receive. He was one of a kind, and baseball was really, really fun watching him hit every night.
Sadly, though, I don't know that he'd be as well paid as he should in today's baseball, because I don't know that he would be as valued as much. And I turn my attention to a guy like Luis Arraez. Now, I'm not saying Arraez is Tony Gwynn. He does play for the Padres, but he is a tough out. But yet they're like, well, I don't know if we'll re-sign this guy because he's not all that, like, he's not valued the way I think he should be.
Yeah, the OPS would only reach a certain limit because he didn't slug enough, so to speak. I think Ichiro's in that same conversation. Super valuable. I remember watching Ichiro take batting practice one time when I was about 12 years old at the old Safeco field, and he was hitting home runs literally line to line. But when the game started, it was more important for him to be a complete hitter. I guarantee you Tony Gwynn was the exact same way. If you have that type of bat-to-ball skills, loft and launch angle and slug is just about 2 or 3 inches more out in front. And Tony could have absolutely cheated and gotten out in front and probably hit as many homers as he wanted. His average would have suffered because he wouldn't have been able to see that ball deep enough, which is what made him so unique, was he was able to let it really, really travel, not have to make a quick decision on so many pitches. He was able to recognize, keep his hands inside, and be able to get many hits. But yeah, it's sad because those type of hitters are table setters for the Aaron Judges to hit the 3-run homer that everybody wants, and you have to have those. I think of a guy like Stephen Kwan in Cleveland that is, they know he's so valuable because he's getting on base for Ramirez to hit multiple run home runs. But I wonder if it's going to eventually circle back. There are teams that are starting to slowly move back into that direction, into the batted ball category that's more important than the slug category. I think it's the sum of the parts. If you can get some guys that are bat to ball like a Tony Gwynn, and then you have your sluggers, you constantly have traffic, you're constantly putting pressure, and then you bop that 3-run homer. That's really what you're looking for, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is Caleb Joseph. We always love talking to him, taking cuts. Couple more minutes with you here, and I appreciate your time. Bo Bichette, you mentioned defense. He's coming up on free agency, and that's the one thing people talk about. Is his defense good enough to get the big payday? But from what I've been reading, he's trying to take a lot more infield grounders, and maybe he realizes that too. Have you noticed anything different from his defense this year so far?
Yeah, I would say the last 2 years he's really kind of shifted into more of what he wants to do. I think his first 3 or 4 years he got very technical and wanting to be technically sound, because when you get to the big leagues at that position, you can be exposed pretty quickly. You're going to be exposed on backhand plays, up the middle plays, even plays where you have to charge. And if your technique isn't very good, there are going to be infield coaches that are wanting to change that to really solidify all that. And I think that he did some work with Troy Tulowitzki, who was sort of an uncanny type of shortstop in the way that he moved. He was always throwing off balance. He always looked a little bit out of sync, but it was perfectly in sync for his body type and how he wanted to play. I played with a guy named J.J. Hardy who was about as textbook as it got. It was like the Tom and Mansky drills, with Fred McGriff, the top hat. It was the Tom and Mansky type drill where it was just perfect position, perfect form, four seam over the top, hit the guy in the chest every single time. Tulowitzki is totally opposite. He'll field a ground ball right at him on the run, throwing on the run. And so he worked with Tulowitzki, Bichette that is, and I feel like his athleticism finally started to come out, and he actually was bound by a lot of the rigid A to B type movements. And I'm seeing him really throw off the run quite a bit, and ironically, he's more accurate throwing off the run than he is kind of a three-point stance, stepping towards first and throwing it over the top. He has enough to be consistent, and that's what you're looking for in a shortstop. Can he just make the everyday play? Because the way he hits, he's incredibly valued. Now, if you don't hit as much as Bichette does, you probably need to do a little bit more on defense and be more of a defensive wizard. But because he hits, if he can just be slightly above average on defense, there will be a lot of teams looking for his services.
I think I know how I feel about politics, and I'm not going to bring politics into this. It's sports, but what has happened between Canada and the U.S., this whole tariff talk. I'm in the auto industry now, selling cars, and it's kind of like what's going to happen, and everybody's kind of trying to figure it out. I will say, and I've said this before, Donald Trump sticking up for his country, that's what I want my leader to do. But there's some ramifications in baseball. The Jays were just in Seattle where they swept the Mariners, and the Jays, like John Schneider, they even noticed that there were less Blue Jay fans coming across from Vancouver, maybe Alberta, to come watch the Blue Jays in Seattle, which was always a big thing, right? You even experienced that. You know that.
Yep. I heard about it for years and years, played with the club in the COVID season in 20. And obviously we played in Buffalo. We weren't able to make that road trip. I was really looking forward to it when I signed with Toronto to be able to make that type of trip. Everyone rants and raves about it. All the broadcasters want to be on that trip. And it's really sad and unfortunate because I was able to actually experience it a couple years later. Well, actually 1 year later in 2021 when I was with the Mariners and the Blue Jays came into town. And it was incredible to see how Toronto turned it into a home game. It was absolutely wild. The entire third base side of the stadium was blue, and they were loud, and it was really odd sitting at your home park listening to crowds that were louder when the visiting team scored than crowds when the home team scored. And it's such a unique experience, and honestly, it's a great way for a lot of Western Canada to actually see their one team in their entire country. And so you hope that things start to kind of iron out and hope that some of those, possible protests die down, because I know there's a lot of Western Canadian fans that watch our show, Blue Jays Central, and always comment about going down to see their team. It's something that they really look forward to, and hopefully they can find their way back into Seattle maybe next year to root on their Blue Jays.
I'm sure things will get back to normal. Like we said in the last show, I think Canadians and Americans do like each other. In fact, you're a hockey guy. Did you see yesterday Dallas and Winnipeg? Marchman got mad at the ref and gave him a little tap on the legs, and I thought for sure he's going to get fined or suspended. There's no hearing, which I kind of find weird. What's the leash for players? Like, can you have you watched a guy bump into an umpire and he's like, no, okay, I'm not going to throw you out? Or is there once there's contact, you're gone? Because that was like a boom. He tapped him on the shins like, hey man, you missed a call, and there was nothing, not a penalty, no suspension, no fine, nothing, which shocks me.
Yeah, that is really shocking. Every time that I've had somebody come in contact with an umpire in baseball, even slight contacts, there's a pretty hefty fine. And there's really no room for any gray area. It is, if you make contact, you are going to be fined significantly. You're going to be fined maybe $1,000 if you're thrown out of a game, no matter what. But you get in an umpire's face and you're going to feel it. And I remember Kevin Gosman hitting Xander Bogaerts with a breaking ball early in the season, and I went berserko on home plate umpire Sam Holbrook. I went absolutely nuts on him. But I vividly remember being about 4 feet away from him because there's no shot I'm going to make contact with you. I'm going to probably get thrown out of this game, but I'm not making contact. And to have that happen in sports, it is a little bit unique because if you let that one go, then it's almost permission, right? Permission for others to do it. And heat of the moment, everyone is running at about 9,000 RPMs in the playoffs, especially playoff hockey, and everyone's watching. And so to kind of get away with that, so to speak, I'd be a little bit worried if I was a referee. Okay, well, if they're going to let that go, what's next? Somebody give me a kidney shot if I miss a tripping call or miss an offsides. They need to be protected. There's really no room for that. You can jaw at them all you want, but no need to use your stick, no need to make any physical contact. Just berate them all you want with language. That's fine. But when you start getting into the stick and contact, that's when you start to cross into that gray area that I'm not sure I'd be willing to go there.
Okay, so what's that like? Okay, so it's an intimate situation, a catcher and an umpire. You go absolutely ballistic on him. I don't know what inning it's in. How does the rest of the game go? How does the next time when you guys, do you just wipe it out of your mind and it's just, you get it, it's the theatrics of baseball? Like, is it awkward the next time you run into the dude?
Yeah, it was unique because I have an incredibly close relationship with umpires. Obviously, I'm right there, and I found myself to be an umpire's catcher, so to speak. I was an umpire when I was a kid. I know how hard the job is, and I always felt like if I could be teammates with them, I would end up benefiting more. So I rarely popped off. But this was like the second inning. We were in game 3 of a 3-game series. Our bullpen was already taxed. There was beanball war going on the first 2 series of the year, so the umpire's heightened awareness was already up. Gosman hits Bogaerts with a breaking ball, and it was blatant. It was like 72. It was a very cold night in Boston. It was obvious that it slipped, hit him right in the fanny, and just right away he tossed him. And it's one of those moments that I literally jumped up and slammed my mask down. And I think my reaction so immediate to what had happened, I think it kind of shocked him back into reality, thinking, oh no, why did I just throw him out? Did I mess it up? Because you have all those pre-existing things happening, and then you're so looking for a beanball war to eject a guy that you don't really think about it before it happens. And then me going berserko, that was almost like a shock as well. It would have been one thing if Russell Martin was doing it, but he was always, bantering back and forth with the umpires. They probably wouldn't have thought twice about it. But me going berserko, it was almost like, oh no, I think I messed this up. And I tried to get thrown out of that game, and Sam just wore it. He never said a word. He just wore it. 3 other umpires came in trying to get me away from him and trying to separate me. All 3 of them could have thrown me out at any point because I was almost jawing back at them like, how the bleep are you letting this happen? I was trying to get thrown out, and none of them would throw me out. And that's when you know as a player that they screwed it up. And so once you finish the inning, he knows he messed it up because he didn't toss me. He never said a word. I never said a word. And unfortunately, that series ended up not going well for us. And so I was heated post-game, and I started ranting and raving or whatever, and I went nuts. And then that was it. And then about a month later, I saw him, and I told him, I said, hey, you know what, like, I probably shouldn't have gone that berserko. We lost our bullpen. I talked to him about it, and he was like, I understand. We all make mistakes, right? And I was like, I got it, Sam. Like, all good, water under the bridge. I'm good if you're good. He was like, you're a good man. And that was it. And so I can have that type of relationship all day because, yes, you are human. Did it ruin us for the next 4 days? Absolutely. But he was saying, without particularly saying, that he messed it up. And you know what? I'm going to let it go at that point. I saw him multiple times throughout the years after that. Good friends. Nothing was a problem. But I'll tell you what, I gave it to him pretty hard, and I kind of feel bad about it looking back at it because it is just a game, but I went nuts on him.
Okay, lastly, man, this is like, except for like the last 5 years as a Padres fan, by June, my team's pretty well out of it. But they've got a nice park, and the best thing that ever happened to the Padres is the Chargers leaving for LA, because that's their city now, and the owners have bought in and are spending money, and the Padres are in the mix. Will they win it? Probably not, but at least they've got a chip at chair and a chance. I look at the Rockies, who just fired Bud Black, who I think's a good manager. You'd know more than me, and the Pirates. Two of the best venues, and those teams stink, and those fans deserve better, and it's absolutely gross what happens in some of these cities. Like, you're done before the season even starts. It's embarrassing, actually.
Yeah, especially in the NL Central. That division seems to be up for grabs just about every single year. And I remember going to Pittsburgh, my second road trip of my Major League career, thinking this place is absolutely incredible. They should have no problem building a legit team year in, year out just because of the venue itself. And for whatever reason, they just continue to spin at a level that is like the Rays without the player development that the Rays have. And so you're consistently pulling in cast-offs for $3 million a year, guys that have been basically let go by all the other clubs that they didn't like, or they didn't think that were good enough. And it's just not good enough. And the people of Pittsburgh deserve better, to be honest with you. They really deserve to have a team out there that is worth going to support. And you can't blame them for not wanting to show up, because their team stinks every single year. And they'll sign an Andrew McCutchen, and they'll sign a random player here and there to really try and make it interesting. But they never really fully go all in on it. And I can't imagine being a fan of a team where you never fully go all in. You never try and raise the floor a little bit as it pertains to their salary. And Colorado is very similar. That venue is unbelievable too. And I get it a little bit more because of the division they're in. They're in a much, much tougher division with San Francisco, with LA, with even Arizona now, and your Padres. So they're in a much difficult position, but their venue is awesome too. And they actually draw really well, for the most part. So they have just not been able to develop very many really marquee type of players. Think about the last really impact players they've been able to develop. It's basically been Arenado and Story. They have Ryan McMahon over there, McMahon, that's a hot commodity. But even their trades that they've tried to trade some of these big value asset picks, they've gotten nothing in return. They're doing nothing correct. And it's amazing how much ownership can continue to stay at the helm and nothing really changes, yet they want people to try and show up and they want people to support their team. It's really too bad, because both of those places are amazing venues to play at.
Well, and there's no excuse. I don't think there's any excuse for any baseball team to mail it in. Like, I think they're all in a financial position where they could field a team where they could have an opportunity to compete, especially with the extra wild card spot. Like that's embarrassing.
No doubt about it. And my son hates seeing it too. He hates seeing the Rockies, and he hates seeing the Pirates just not being any good. I mean, he wants to go watch a Rockies game. His favorite color is purple, and he loves the mountains. We went to Colorado last year, so he hates it. But it really is sad, because if you just have good forms in place in terms of drafting, developing, you can have sustainable teams that have a chance. And look at the Rays. They're really a model organization that they're going to spend a little bit lower. But honestly, they don't have to. And, you talk about the CBA sometimes. We talk about it coming up. Well, we talk about the salary cap, and the reason that a lot of MLB players will not do it. We will think about a salary cap at the minute that the owners open up their books, and they will not open up the books. And there's a reason for that. And so when you look at these markets like Pittsburgh, like Colorado, if they were shown their books, it would be staggering how much they could spend and still make a profit. And so you look at some of these salaries that they put out. Pittsburgh, they're getting a lot of money on baseball advanced media. There's all these different revenue sharing type programs. They could spend more by far. Colorado could do the same, yet they choose to and sort of cry poor at the bottom of the league. They don't have to do that. And if you build a winning team, if you build a winning product, people will be interested. Ratings go up, money soars. You have to spend money to make money. The Rays are really the only team that has found a way to do it and do it successfully. These other teams, I think they got to find a different way because baseball's better when those two teams are more competitive.
That's this is Ballsy Uncut, so anything can happen. And those were that was a sampling of Rockies and Pirates season ticket holders who were pissed off.
Just crying their eyes out.
Hey man, thanks for your time. I appreciate it, buddy.
All right, you got it, man.